Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. I put a poll out asking which of the videos would you like me to make next, and one of the options was Jorge Masvidal is one fight away from a title shot, and that's what got the most votes. So I figured I'd do a video about that, and I think a lot of people are interested. How is it possible that I think that Jorge Masvidal could be one fight away from a title shot, considering the current streak he's on, and most recently at UFC 261 in April, getting brutally KO'd by Kamaru Usman? So I'm going to answer that question, how I think it's possible that Masvidal is one fight away from a potential welterweight title shot. I'll get to that in a minute, but first off, Jorge Masvidal, I feel like his entire career, up until the last 2 years or so, I think he was criminally underrated. You look back, and when he fought Damian Maia back in 2017, if he was to beat Damian Maia in that fight, he was going to go on and fight Tyron Woodley for the title. And he ended up losing that fight. It was a very close fight. It was by split decision that he lost. And obviously he didn't get the title shot then. And then he went on to lose to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, got absolutely outclassed in that fight. And it was like, okay, I guess the hope is gone for Jorge Masvidal to ever fight for a title. But then he had three of the best performances of his entire career. He KOs Darren Till after a long layoff in March of 2019. Then he goes on to get what I believe is the most important win in his entire career, and that's the Ben Askren win. And even though I didn't have a YouTube channel going into that fight, I'll tell you guys how I felt going into that fight. I thought Ben Askren was one of the worst strikers that I've ever seen, and I thought that Jorge Masvidal, even though he's had some deficiencies with his takedown defense, I thought he was going to brutally KO Ben Askren, and sure enough, he goes out there 5 seconds, throws that brutal flying knee, and KOs Ben Askren, and just blows Jorge Masvidal up. And I think that was a game-changing win for Jorge Masvidal. It blew his name up. The KO was just everywhere. ESPN, everyone was talking about it. And finally, in my opinion, Jorge Masvidal got the respect that he deserved. And since then, it's been a little weird. It seems like he's turning down fights, or maybe it's the UFC negotiating problems. But then he goes on to fight Nate Diaz, and he beats Nate Diaz pretty handedly. It was a doctor stoppage, so there was some controversy. But in my opinion, I saw all I needed to see in that Nate Diaz fight, and he beat him pretty badly. And right at that time, it was Jorge Masvidal deserved a title shot. He's on a 3-fight win streak. People wanted to see him against Kamaru Usman. And it didn't seem like it was going to happen. There were some more negotiating issues. And then it seemed like Gilbert Burns was going to get the title shot. This was last July. And they announced it was going to be Kamaru Usman defending his welterweight title against Gilbert Burns. And I was super excited for that fight. Even though I really wanted to see Jorge Masvidal, I still love the Burns fight. Well, anyway, you guys know the story. Burns fell out, and the UFC went back to Jorge Masvidal, and Jorge Masvidal got what he wanted in negotiations, and he stepped in on, I think it was 2 weeks' notice or a week's notice, to fight Kamaru Usman, which is just absolutely insane. But then again, everyone was saying, including Jorge Masvidal's training partners, that he was training the entire time as if he was fighting on that card. So he goes out, he loses to Usman by a dominant decision, 50-45, I believe, on all three judges' scorecards. And, it just wasn't a great look, but he had, and the reason I think this fight was not that bad for him is he had that built-in excuse. I took it on short notice. So then it kind of works out because without even taking another fight this year at UFC 261, he gets another title shot against Kamaru Usman. So Kamaru Usman goes on to fight Gilbert Burns after that, wins that fight, and now he's fighting Jorge Masvidal again. Jorge Masvidal has the line that, I stepped in on short notice. Now if I get a full camp, which is crazy because even the second fight was on borderline short notice. It was like a month and a half out, which isn't as bad as a week. But he said, you know what, I'm going to get a full training camp, and I can beat this guy. And he goes out and he gets brutally KO'd, one of the most vicious KOs I've ever seen. And Kamaru Usman just looks like one of the greatest welterweights of all time, and he's on his way to becoming that. So after that brutal KO and back-to-back losses with the champ Kamaru Usman, how would it be possible that Jorge Masvidal is only one fight away from a title shot? I'm going to tell you right now. So we all know, when you lose twice to the champion, the chances of getting a third shot are very, very slim, and it just doesn't happen. There's so little cases that has ever happened. I can't even think of any off the top of my head One that's coming to mind but hasn't happened yet that you could see would be Max Holloway. I could see Max Holloway fighting Alexander Volkanovski again. But other than that, I mean, it's not going to happen. And especially considering you would be coming off a brutal KO and, a dominant loss twice in a row, honestly. But here's how I think that Masvidal could get a shot at the title after one win. So in Jorge Masvidal's next fight, I think there's only really there's three opponents for him. There's Leon Edwards out there, there's Gilbert Burns out there, and there's Vicente Luque. I think the most probable options are probably Leon Edwards is my first choice, then Gilbert Burns, then Vicente Luque. If he gets a win over Leon Edwards, he derails that streak. There's that whole backstory of the brawl after the Darren Till fight. People want to see that Masvidal-Leon Edwards fight, and it could finally happen. And people are saying that Leon Edwards deserves a title shot. So if he goes and beats Leon Edwards, who is probably a number one contender, then, okay, and I'm going to get to more points in a second. But then again, if he beats Gilbert Burns, same thing. Now, a win over one of those guys would not be enough by itself. But here's where it really comes in. The only way he's getting a title shot is if at UFC 268, Colby Covington defeats Kamaru Usman. Because if Colby Covington becomes champion and Jorge Masvidal gets a win over a quality guy, you bet that the UFC is doing Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington for the welterweight title. The whole story of former best friends fighting each other, grudge match. It would be one of the biggest fights that the UFC could do, and it would be an amazing storyline. And I actually have an entire video dedicated to analyzing whether or not I think the Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal, beef is real or not. I'll put the link to that in the description, and I'll also put it on the end card. But if Colby's champion and Jorge Masvidal gets one win, you bet Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal will happen for the welterweight title. I guarantee it. The UFC would not miss an opportunity like that. Now, would I love that? No, I wouldn't. Because personally, I think if Kamaru Usman loses to Colby, I think he deserves the trilogy fight. Maybe that's the route they would go. But again, even if they did that, I think Jorge Masvidal could sit out until that played out and then get the title shot if Colby were to somehow win again. So there's my theory. I don't think that's necessarily would be the greatest thing to happen in MMA, but I think it's a real possibility. So I figured I'd put a video out there. I know you guys were interested in what I was talking about when I posted that. So let me know what you guys think in the comment. Do me a favor, like the video. It really helps grow the channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.